It started as just another Saturday. The guest room had turned into a dumping ground for all of Sarah's redecorating projects. Paint samples, half-finished DIY crafts, and furniture catalogs everywhere. The mess was driving me insane, and with Sarah out shopping with Amanda, her partner in crime for home makeovers, I decided to finally take control. I was sifting through the chaos when I noticed a small, dusty box crammed behind a stack of paint cans. It was plain and unmarked, almost like it didn't want to be found. Curious, I pulled it out and opened it. Inside were a few odds and ends. An old bracelet, ticket stubs from a concert we'd gone to years ago, and beneath it all, a leather-bound journal. It was simple but elegant, with a worn strap holding it closed. I stared at it for a moment, debating whether I should even touch it. I knew Sarah valued her privacy. She wasn't the type to overshare, even with me. But something about that journal called to me, like it was waiting to be read. Against my better judgment, I sat down on the floor, took a deep breath, and unwrapped the strap. The first page had her handwriting, neat and familiar. It was dated about a year ago. I met someone today, it began. My heart dropped. I told myself it could mean anything. A new colleague? A friend? I turned the page. His name is Chris, she wrote. He's tall, charming, and has this way of making you feel like you're the only person in the room. We talked for hours, and I couldn't stop smiling. I haven't felt like this in so long. I froze, gripping the edges of the journal like it might slip away if I didn't hold on tight. This wasn't what I expected. I thought it'd be lists, random thoughts, maybe sketches like she used to do in college. Not this. I flipped through more pages, scanning the entries. Each one felt like a punch to the gut. Chris kissed me today. It was soft at first, but then it turned deeper. I didn't want him to stop. I slammed the journal shut, my hands trembling. My mind raced. Who the hell was Chris? When did this start? Why didn't I notice anything? But then my curiosity overpowered the shock. I had to know more. I opened the journal again, flipping further ahead. Chris and I got a hotel room. One entry read. I told myself it was just a talk, but deep down I knew better. The way he touched me, I've never felt so alive, so wanted. It was wrong, but I didn't want it to end. I stopped reading. My breathing was shallow, my chest tight. This wasn't just a fling, it was something deeper, something that had been going on right under my nose. I closed the journal and shoved it back into the box, but the damage was done. Those words, those images were burned into my brain. My wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, had a whole life I wasn't a part of, and now I had to decide what to do about it. I told myself I could just leave the journal alone, put it back in the box, leave it hidden in the guest room, and never look at it again. That was the plan. But no plan survives the first night of lying awake with those words burned into your brain. Chris and I had lunch today. He makes me feel like the person I used to be. The way he looks at me, it's like I'm alive again. Alive again? I thought we were happy. I thought she was happy. The days that followed were some of the strangest of my life. I woke up next to Sarah every morning, drank coffee with her at the kitchen table, and kissed her goodbye before heading to work, but everything felt off. Like the world had shifted a fraction of an inch, and I couldn't find my balance anymore. She didn't seem to notice anything was wrong. Or maybe she did, but Sarah had always been good at keeping her feelings to herself. That was one of the things I used to love about her. Her independence, her calm confidence. Now it just felt like a wall between us. I started noticing the small things. The late-night calls and texts were the first red flag. Her phone buzzed more than usual, and she would glance at it quickly before putting it face down on the table. Sometimes, she'd excuse herself from the room entirely, saying she needed to check on something or take care of work. "Who's texting you so late?" I asked one evening, trying to keep my tone casual. "Oh, it's Amanda," she replied, barely looking up. "She's having trouble with some work stuff." Amanda again. It was always Amanda. Or so she said. Then there were the plans that popped up out of nowhere. Sarah had always been spontaneous, but this was different. One evening, as I was setting the table for dinner, she walked into the kitchen, already putting on her coat. "Where are you going?" I asked. "I told you, Jacob," she said, smiling like it was no big deal. "Dinner with Amanda." "I won't be long." No, she hadn't told me. As the door clicked shut behind her, I stood there, staring at the empty space she left behind. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. After Sarah went to bed, I went back into the guest room. The journal was still there, hidden in the dusty box where I'd left it. My hands trembled as I untied the leather strap and opened it again. I flipped past the entries I'd already read, searching for something, anything, that could give me more answers. My stomach twisted as I read the next page. Chris told me he couldn't stop thinking about me. I know it's wrong, but when he says things like that, I feel wanted, desired. I shut the journal for a moment, staring at the wall. Chris. The name was starting to feel like a knife in my gut, but I couldn't stop. I needed to know more. Jacob was working late tonight, so Chris and I went out for drinks. He's so easy to talk to. When he touched my hand, I felt something I haven't felt in years. My chest tightened. I thought about all the nights I'd stayed late at the office, thinking I was doing the right thing, building a future for us. All the while, Chris had been there, filling the gaps I didn't even know existed. The last entry I read that night broke me. We kissed again tonight. This time, it felt different, like it meant something. I don't know what I'm doing anymore, but I can't stop. I slammed the journal shut and threw it back into the box. My hands were shaking, my mind racing. I thought the journal would give me clarity, but it only left me with more questions. Who the hell was Chris? How long had this been going on? And how had I missed it? I couldn't live like this. I needed to know the truth, and I needed to find it myself. Jacob couldn't shake the unease that had settled in his chest. The journal had answered some questions, but left far more unresolved. Who was Chris? How long had this been going on? And why hadn't he noticed? It wasn't long before paranoia took hold. Every glance Sarah gave her phone, every casual excuse to step out of the room, felt loaded with meaning. Jacob found himself watching her more closely than ever, looking for anything that might confirm what he already suspected. One night, as Sarah slept, he slipped into the guest room and opened her journal again. This time, he was searching for specifics, names of places, times, anything that could help him piece together the truth. One entry stood out. Meeting Chris tomorrow at noon. Same spot as last time. Can't wait to see him. Jacob felt his stomach churn. He flipped through more pages, finding similar mentions of the spot and lunchtime. There was a pattern here, something Sarah had tried to keep hidden, but she hadn't been careful enough. The next day, Jacob waited for his opportunity. Sarah left the house around 11:30, dressed in a casual but polished outfit, jeans and a fitted blouse that she rarely wore for errands. "Where are you off to?" he asked, keeping his tone light. "Lunch with Amanda," she replied smoothly, grabbing her purse. "Don't wait up. I might run a few errands afterward." Jacob nodded, hiding the bitterness in his throat. He knew Amanda wasn't part of her plans. As soon as Sarah's car disappeared down the street, Jacob grabbed his keys and followed. She drove to a café downtown, a small, quiet spot they'd been to a handful of times together. Jacob parked a block away, far enough not to be noticed, and watched her go inside. Not even 5 minutes later, a man walked up to the door. He was tall, with dark hair and a confident stride. Jacob didn't need an introduction to know this was Chris. They hugged when he walked in, an embrace that lasted a little too long, with her head leaning against his chest for just a moment. They sat by the window, leaning in close as they talked. Jacob stayed in his car, watching from a distance. He didn't need to hear the conversation to know what was happening. The way they looked at each other, the laughter, the way she touched his hand as if it was the most natural thing in the world, it was all too much. When they left the cafe, Jacob continued following. They walked together to a nearby park, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. At one point, Chris pulled her into a quiet corner near the trees, and they kissed. Jacob's knuckles turned white as he gripped the steering wheel. He wanted to storm over, to demand answers, to drag Chris away and make him pay for what he was doing. But he didn't move. Instead, he stayed in his car, watching as the woman he thought he knew so well embraced a life he wasn't part of. When Sarah came home later that evening, she greeted him with a smile, acting like nothing was out of the ordinary. Jacob played along, but inside, he was unraveling. He knew now that this wasn't just paranoia. It was real. Sarah was living a double life, and Jacob was done being a bystander. The discovery of Sarah's betrayal was like a storm that wouldn't pass. No matter how much I tried to focus on other things, her journal and what I'd seen with Chris consumed my thoughts. Every interaction felt like a performance, every moment a reminder of what I now knew. I avoided confrontation, though it wasn't easy. At work, I was distracted, missing deadlines and zoning out during meetings. At home, I tried to act normal, but Sarah noticed the shift. "Are you okay, Jacob?" she asked one evening, sitting across from me at the dinner table. "Yeah, just work stuff," I replied, forcing a smile. She nodded, seemingly satisfied, but I could tell she was watching me more closely than usual. At night, when Sarah was asleep, I found myself going back to her journal. I didn't want to, but it was like an addiction. I read the same entries over and over, hoping to find something new, something that would make this all feel less real. Instead, I found another entry I hadn't noticed before. Chris said he's thinking about us, about what this could mean long term. I told him I don't know what I want, but the truth is I think about it too. Being with him feels easy, natural. I just wish Jacob wasn't in the way. I shut the journal and stared at the wall, my hands shaking. In the way? I thought. Was that all I was to her? An obstacle to her happiness? Her behavior only made things worse. She started going out more frequently, always with the same excuses. "I'm meeting Amanda," she said one Friday evening, pulling on her coat. "She's having a hard time lately. I'll probably be late. So don't wait up." "Okay," I said, my voice neutral. I didn't press her, but my mind was already racing. When she left, I grabbed her laptop. I'd seen her password enough times to know it, though I hated myself for using it. Her emails were mostly mundane, work updates, spam, nothing unusual. But then I found an email in her personal folder, marked private. Subject: Friday's plan. From Chris. I hesitated before opening it, bracing myself for what I might find. "Can't wait to see you again. I'll book the same place as last time. Just let me know what time works for you." My stomach churned. Same place as last time. What the hell did that mean? I searched her inbox for anything related to reservations. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for: a confirmation email from a hotel downtown. One night. Her name. I stared at the screen, the weight of everything pressing down on me. This wasn't a mistake, wasn't a misunderstanding. Sarah was seeing Chris, planning weekends with him, living a life I wasn't part of. When she came home that night, she was all smiles, acting like nothing was wrong. "Everything okay?" she asked, dropping her purse on the counter. "Yeah," I said, forcing myself to sound normal. "How was Amanda?" "She's doing better," Sarah replied, leaning in to kiss me on the cheek. "I'm going to head to bed early. It's been a long day." I nodded, watching her disappear down the hallway. My hands were still shaking from what I'd found. I knew now that this wasn't just an affair. It was a deliberate betrayal. But I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. First, I needed to figure out exactly what I was going to do. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. Every glance at Sarah felt like a reminder of what I'd seen, what I now knew. The emails, the journal, and their kiss in the park, it was all too much. But confronting her felt impossible. I needed proof she couldn't deny. Friday night, Sarah told me she had plans with Amanda again. "It's been a rough week for her," she said, grabbing her purse. I forced a smile. "Of course. Take your time." As soon as the door closed, I grabbed my jacket and followed her car. She drove to the same downtown hotel I'd seen in the email. I parked across the street, watching as she stepped inside. 5 minutes later, Chris arrived. He walked in with the same confident air I remembered from the café, like nothing could touch him. My stomach twisted, but I stayed in the car, gripping the wheel so hard my fingers ached. When they came out an hour later, Sarah was smiling, her face glowing in a way I hadn't seen in years. Chris leaned in close, whispering something that made her laugh. I went home, my thoughts a chaotic swirl of anger and humiliation. When Sarah walked through the door that evening, I was ready. "Where were you?" I asked, standing in the living room. She blinked, surprised. "I told you with Amanda." "Stop lying, Sarah," I said sharply. "I know." Her face paled. "Know what?" "I know about Chris. I know about the hotel. I followed you." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Finally, she stammered, "It's not what you think." "Don't," I said, stepping closer. "Don't insult me. I read your journal. I've seen the emails. I watched you today." She sat down, her hands trembling. "I didn't mean for this to happen." "But it did," I said coldly. "How long, Sarah?" "A few months," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't think it would go this far. I laughed bitterly. You didn't think? You planned hotel stays. You lied to my face. And you expect me to believe this wasn't intentional. I was lonely, she said, tears welling in her eyes. You've been so distant, always working. I needed something, and that something was him. I snapped. While I was out building a life for us, you were sneaking around with someone else? Her tears fell freely now, but I didn't care. I couldn't. I'm sorry, she whispered. I don't know how to fix this. I don't think you can, I said. I need time to figure out what happens next. I walked upstairs, leaving her alone in the living room. For the first time in years, I wasn't sure if our marriage could survive. The days after our confrontation felt like living in limbo. Sarah tried to act like things were normal, but nothing was normal anymore. I avoided her as much as I could, spending my nights on the couch and my days lost in thought. Every time I saw her, all I could picture was her with Chris, laughing, touching, lying to my face. She made a few attempts to talk to me, but I wasn't ready. Jacob, she said one evening as I sat staring at the blank TV screen. I know I've hurt you, and I know I don't deserve anything from you right now, but please, can we talk? I didn't even look at her. I have nothing to say to you, Sarah. Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I thought she might break down. But instead, she nodded and left the room. I needed perspective, and I wasn't going to find it in this house. After some hesitation, I called my closest friend, Ethan. He was the one person I trusted to tell me the truth, no matter how hard it might be to hear. Jacob, he said after I explained everything, you've been through hell. I'm so sorry, man. Have you decided what you're going to do? No, I admitted. I feel stuck. Like, how do you even move forward from something like this? Ethan sighed. You have to figure out what you want. Do you think you can forgive her? Or is this a line you can't uncross? I don't know, I said. I don't know what's real anymore. Then you need answers, Ethan said firmly. If you're going to make a decision, you need to know the full truth. You can't let her hold all the cards. His advice struck a chord. I couldn't move forward until I knew everything. The next day, while Sarah was out, I sat down with her laptop again. I hated what I was doing, but I couldn't stop. I went through her emails, her messages, her calendar, anything that might give me a clearer picture. That's when I found the texts. Chris had sent her dozens of messages over the last few months, and most of them were painful to read. But one stood out. Chris, I hate sneaking around like this. You deserve better. Just leave him already. The message was recent, sent just days before our confrontation. She hadn't responded, but the implications were clear. Chris wanted more. He wasn't just some fling. He wanted her to leave me. I leaned back in the chair, the weight of it all pressing down on me. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. It was about my entire life being unraveled by someone who thought he could take what was mine. For the first time, I realized that this wasn't just Sarah's betrayal. It was a challenge, and I wasn't ready to lose. I was done sitting on the sidelines. For weeks, I'd been drowning in doubt and pain, but now, I had clarity. If I wanted control back, I needed to confront not just Sarah, but the man who thought he could walk into my life and steal what wasn't his. Chris. I started by digging into him. Social media, professional profiles, anything I could find. It wasn't hard. People like Chris always left a trail. They couldn't help themselves. He worked as a project manager for a small tech firm, divorced with no kids, and had a habit of posting pictures of his successes. Fancy dinners, expensive watches, gym selfies. He liked showing off. It was one of those posts that led me to a clue. A comment from a coworker about Chris always getting what he wanted. It didn't seem like much, but after a little more digging, I learned he'd been involved in multiple office flings over the years. Messy ones. The kind that left people talking long after they were over. I couldn't help but feel disgusted. This wasn't just a man who'd made a mistake. This was someone who thrived on taking what didn't belong to him. And now, he'd targeted my wife. Sarah, meanwhile, kept trying to reach me. Jacob, she said one night as I sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone. Can we talk? Please. I glanced at her briefly, then looked away. I'm busy. Her face fell, but she nodded and walked out of the room. I could hear her footsteps upstairs, the door to our bedroom closing softly. I didn't feel guilty. If she wanted to talk, she could have done it months ago, before Chris became her escape. Once I had enough on Chris, I made my move. I knew where he worked and how his industry operated. Using a professional email alias, I posed as a potential client looking to discuss a partnership. It didn't take long for him to respond. He was eager, probably too eager, and we arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown. On the day of the meeting, I arrived early, choosing a table where I could see the entrance. I didn't know exactly how this would go, but I was ready for anything. When Chris walked in, I recognized him instantly. He was just as smug in person as he was in his photos. His tailored jacket, his watch glinting under the cafe lights. He spotted me and walked over with a practiced smile, hand extended. "Jacob, right? Thanks for reaching out," he said as we shook hands. I gestured for him to sit, forcing myself to remain calm. He didn't know who I was. Not yet. We started talking business, just surface-level chatter to put him at ease. I could see him scanning me, probably thinking about how to close the deal. He didn't realize he was walking straight into a trap. After a few minutes, I leaned forward slightly, locking eyes with him. "So, Chris," I said casually, my voice steady. "How's Sarah?" The smile froze on his face. For a moment, he didn't move, his confident facade cracking. What are you talking about?" he stammered. "You know exactly what I'm talking about," I said, my tone sharpening. "Let's skip the lies. You've been seeing my wife." He paled, his composure slipping completely. This was just the beginning. The meeting with Chris had stirred something in me. Anger, yes, but also clarity. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had control, like I wasn't just reacting to what was happening around me. But that control was fragile, and as the days passed, I found myself slipping back into the same cycle of doubt and frustration. Sarah knew something was different. She'd been watching me more closely, her attempts at small talk growing more frequent, but I gave her nothing. I wasn't ready to let her in. Not yet. Finally, one evening, she couldn't take it anymore. "Jacob," she said, standing in the doorway of the living room. Her voice was soft but steady. "We need to talk." I didn't look at her. "There's nothing to talk about." "There's everything to talk about," she said, taking a tentative step into the room. "Please, Jacob, just listen to me." Her tone caught me off guard. It wasn't defensive or pleading. It was raw. I sighed and turned off the TV, motioning for her to sit. She lowered herself into the armchair across from me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I owe you the truth," she said, her voice trembling. "No excuses. No half-truths. Just everything." "Go ahead," I said coldly. She swallowed hard before speaking. "It started a few months ago. I didn't plan it. I didn't even think it could happen. But I was lonely, Jacob. You were always working, always distracted. And then Chris came along. He made me feel noticed, like I mattered. I clenched my fists, but I didn't interrupt. It was just conversations at first," she continued. "But then it escalated. I let it escalate. I didn't want to admit what I was doing, not to myself, not to anyone. But I did it anyway." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Why?" I asked, my voice low. "Why wasn't I enough for you?" "You are enough," she said quickly, tears welling in her eyes. "This wasn't about you. It was about me, about how broken I felt, about how I didn't know how to ask for what I needed." "Broken?" I scoffed. "And your solution was to sleep with someone else? That's how you fix things?" She flinched but didn't look away. "I don't expect you to understand, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need you to know that I never stopped loving you." "Loving me?" I snapped. "Do you even hear yourself? If this is what love looks like, Sarah, I don't want any part of it." She broke down then, sobbing openly. For a moment, I felt nothing but numbness as I watched her. "I don't know what to do," she whispered through her tears. "I don't know how to make this right." I stood, my heart pounding in my chest. "Maybe you can't," I said. "Maybe there's no coming back from this." I grabbed my coat and walked out the door, slamming it behind me. The cool night air hit me like a slap, but it didn't clear my mind. I got in my car and started driving, aimlessly circling the streets as the weight of her words pressed down on me. Back at the house, Sarah was left alone, her sobs echoing in the empty living room. The streets were empty as I drove aimlessly, the hum of the engine, the only sound breaking the stillness of the night. My confrontation with Sarah and everything she'd said replayed in my mind like a broken record. No matter how much I tried to sort through it, I kept coming back to the same question. How did we get here? I pulled over near a park where we used to walk together years ago. The benches were empty, the paths lit only by faint streetlights. Sitting in the car, I stared at the spot where we'd once laughed about something silly, her hand slipping into mine as naturally as breathing. That moment felt like it belonged to a different life, someone else's life. For hours, I wrestled with my thoughts. Did I still love her? Or was I holding on to an idea of who she used to be? The Sarah I married was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. It wasn't just her affair that haunted me. It was the realization that our marriage had been crumbling long before Liam entered the picture. I hadn't seen it, or maybe I hadn't wanted to. By the time the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, I knew I couldn't stay out any longer. Reluctantly, I turned the car around and headed home. When I walked through the door, the house was silent. The dim glow of the kitchen light caught my eye, drawing me to the table. A piece of paper sat there, folded neatly, my name written across the top in Sarah's handwriting. I stared at it, my stomach twisting. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but eventually, I sat down and unfolded the letter. Jacob, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from right now, but I need to say this. I need you to know how deeply sorry I am for everything I've done. There are no words to describe the pain I've caused you. But please know that I never stopped loving you. What I did was wrong, selfish, cruel, and unforgivable. I can't take back my actions, but I can own them. You didn't deserve this. You've been nothing but kind, patient, and loving, even when I didn't deserve it. I don't expect you to forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me either. But if there's any chance, even the smallest one, that we can rebuild what we had, I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, honesty, time, whatever you need, it's yours. If this is the end, I'll accept it because I brought us here. But losing you will be the greatest regret of my life. I'm so sorry, Jacob. I'll carry this regret forever. The words blurred in front of me as I set the letter down. Her pain was raw, her regret unmistakable. And yet, all I could feel was a deep, aching void. I folded the letter and leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling. What was I supposed to do with this? Was it enough? Could anything ever be enough? As the sun rose higher, painting faint streaks of light across the kitchen walls, I stood and placed the letter in a drawer. For now, I needed space, clarity. Sarah might be ready to face her mistakes, but I wasn't ready to decide if I could forgive them. The days following Sarah's letter felt heavier than anything I'd experienced before. Her words lingered in my mind, and no matter how much I tried to push them away, they always crept back in. It wasn't just the guilt she expressed. It was the raw honesty, the vulnerability in admitting she had no idea if things could be fixed. One evening, as I sat in the living room staring at the blank television screen, Sarah walked in. Her footsteps were hesitant, almost as if she was afraid I'd ask her to leave. Jacob, she began, her voice quiet. Can we talk? I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to shut her out again, but another part, the one that still remembered the woman I married, nodded. She sat across from me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I know I've said this before, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry. For everything. I know, I said flatly. I don't think you do, she replied, tears welling up in her eyes. I hurt you in ways I can't undo. And I don't deserve anything from you. But I need to be honest about what happened. For a moment, I considered stopping her. I wasn't sure if I could handle hearing it all again, but I nodded. She took a shaky breath. The affair, it wasn't about love. It wasn't even about him. It was about me. I felt invisible. Jacob, you were so focused on work, on providing for us, and I told myself it was okay. But it wasn't. Instead of talking to you, instead of trying to fix things, I took the easy way out. I looked for validation somewhere else. And you found it, I said bitterly. She winced but didn't look away. I thought I did, but it wasn't real. It was selfish and destructive, and I ruined everything that mattered in my life because I was too much of a coward to face my own issues. Her words hung in the air, heavy with the truth I already knew but hadn't wanted to confront. You should have come to me, I said, my voice quiet but firm. You should have given me the chance to fix it. I know, she whispered. And I hate myself for not doing that. I let us fall apart, Jacob. That's on me. I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. Hearing her admit her faults didn't make the pain go away, but it felt like a step, small, tentative, but a step nonetheless. Do you even think we can fix this? I asked. I don't know, she said honestly. But I want to try. I'll do whatever it takes, therapy, counseling, anything. I know I don't deserve another chance, but if you're willing to give me one, I'll fight for us. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw something different. She wasn't pleading or making excuses. She was genuinely willing to face the damage she'd done. I can't promise you anything, I said finally. This is going to take time, and I don't know if I'll ever fully trust you again. I understand, she said, a tear slipping down her cheek. But I'll wait as long as it takes. I'll show you, Jacob. The sincerity in her voice hit me harder than I expected. It didn't erase what had happened, but it made me feel like maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward. We'll start with therapy, I said, my tone cautious. That's the first step. If we can't even get through that, we will, she interrupted, her voice steady despite the tears. I'll do the work, Jacob. I swear. For the first time in weeks, I felt the faintest hint of hope. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep me from walking away entirely. As we sat in the quiet of the living room, I realized that the road ahead would be long and uncertain. But for the first time, it didn't feel impossible.